I used to believe marriages were held together by anniversaries and big gestures. Then I learned they're stapled by small promises. I'll be home by 7. I'll text when I get there. I'll tell you the truth and not just the parts that make a pleasant sound. My name is Ethan Cole. I design kitchens for a living symmetry, storage, a place for everything. My wife Naomi taught poetry at the community college and could quote lines that made a room go quiet. We had one child, a daughter named June, 15 and observant in the way children are when they're deciding which adult is safest to look like. The story started with errands. Target run, Naomi would say, kissing my cheek, keys chiming in her hand. I'll be quick. We're out of paper towels. Yoga and then coffee staff meeting migrated to a cafe. Book club, I'm late. Don't wait up. Little departures like rowboats unlatching from a dock. The first time I noticed the smell, it was late September. Naomi came home wearing the perfume she'd abandoned years ago for a cleaner scent. The old one was sweet, theatrical, the kind that arrives in a room before the person does. On her collar was a thumb smudge of something like wine or lipstick. She smiled a small, distracted smile and asked about June's math test. I told myself it was nothing. I am talented at building drawers sturdy enough to hold denial. June is less patient with furniture. We were loading the dishwasher when she said, without turning, "Mom's on her phone a lot." "Everyone is," I said, buying time. "She turns it over when we walk in," June continued, as if reciting a list she hadn't meant to write. "And she wears that red shirt when she says she has errands, the one she says is comfortable." I rinsed a plate purely for the occupation of rinsing it. "What are you telling me?" June slid the top rack in. "That a person who wants to be seen can be seen," she said. And then she left the room like she had suddenly remembered she was 15 and this was not her job. I stood there with clean plates and a life that had shifted half an inch, the way a house does before a tremor. I checked the driveway cam, the one I installed after someone tried the car door handles at 2 a.m. It showed Naomi coming and going, nothing notable beyond the way she glanced in the mirror longer than usual. I looked at our joint credit card. Purchases matched her story. Groceries, a bookstore, gas. Nothing to point at and say, here is the betrayal. Only a silence I could feel. I told myself I trusted her. I told myself this the way a man tells himself he doesn't hear the drip in the wall. Then I did the thing you do when you love someone and fear you're a coward. I asked. We were in the kitchen. She was slicing apples with the little knife she called Lucky because it never dulled. "Are you happy?" I said. "With you or in general?" She said it lightly. Then she saw my face and put the knife down. "What's the matter, E?" "You've been out a lot, errands and book clubs." I stopped because the next words felt like a wrong door I couldn't close. "I miss you," I said instead, which was true enough to fit. Her eyes softened. "I know," she said. "The semester's heavy and I'm tired. I'll do better." She came around the island and held my face in both hands. The gesture was old and familiar. So was the warmth. When she kissed me, the room narrowed to breath and the small geography of mouths. She pressed closer, and my body remembered all the countries we'd mapped together. We swayed and bumped the cabinet, and I laughed into her throat because there was relief in being wanted by the person you have promised to belong to. Later on the couch, her head on my shoulder, she said, "Thank you for asking instead of assuming." I fell asleep thinking we had chosen each other again. 2 weeks later, June knocked on my workroom door with a gravity that made my stomach fold. She set her phone on the table. On the screen, a photo she'd taken from her upstairs window. Naomi on the sidewalk at dusk, head tipped back laughing, a man's hand on her elbow. The man was Liam Harper. Liam had been part of our orbit since college, the rare friend who survived the transition from late-night pizza to carpools. He and I had watched soccer games together. He'd helped me lay hardwood in the guest room, accepted a beer with the blessed, wordless gratitude of men who have carried drywall. When Naomi started teaching, Liam took one of her afternoon sections for the heck of it and then kept taking them. The kind of perpetual student who calls it curiosity and gets away with it because he's interesting enough to be forgiven. In the photo, Liam's body leaned toward my wife. It was an angle that knew where it wanted to end. June said softly, I'm not trying to hurt you. I don't want to be the only one who sees it. I know, I said, and surprised myself by meaning it. I put her phone down and put my hands on the table like a man facing a judge. Then I did the bulwark work. I checked the childcare calendar to make sure June's weekends were steady. I paid the mortgage ahead a month. I moved some savings to an account Naomi didn't use because logistics should not shatter because hearts do. I made a counseling appointment and a pot of chili and a list. And I followed Naomi. It was a Thursday. She said she had office hours and then a reading at the bookstore on 5th. I drove to campus and parked 3 rows back where the maple trees made their slow red decisions. Naomi's car pulled out, not toward 5th, but toward the river. I told myself she was taking the long way, which is the kind of lie you have to say out loud to hear how cheap it is. She parked outside a coffee shop with hanging plants and a chalkboard sign that always misspelled cappuccino. Liam sat in the window with 2 mugs already sweating rings into the wood. I sat in the car and watched them. I watched her face the way you watch your house from the sidewalk at night when your family's inside. Lights warm, shapes moving, and you feel tender and excluded at once. Liam touched her wrist when he laughed. Her shoulder turned to him the way a flower turns to a lamp. When they left, they didn't touch. When they reached the corner, they did. Fingers first, brief, almost nothing, then hands, a quiet claiming. A block later, he stopped and kissed her. It seemed to happen in slow motion, not like the movies with their quick insistence. More like the world paused to listen, and her hands rose to his shoulders and then into his hair with the confidence of someone who had practiced the gesture. I stayed in the car until my breath stopped stuttering. Then I did what I knew how to do. I wrote down what I had seen, dates and times, not because a court would want it, but because reality would. They walked to his apartment 1 street over, a 2nd-floor place with a balcony just large enough for 2 chairs and a basil plant that frequently gave up. He looked up and down the block like a man checking weather. They went inside. The door closed. The blinds moved, lowering like eyelids. That was as far as I followed. Some lines I did not want to cross even if they already had. I didn't confront them then. It wouldn't have been conversation. It would have been theater. I drove home. June was doing homework at the table, a pencil brigade of eraser nubs scattered around her. I made her tea because I didn't trust my voice for anything longer than "Your hand is shaking, Dad." "Do you hate her?" June asked finally. "No," I said, "but I hate that she's making us choose what to do with love." June nodded, already older than she had been this morning. That night Naomi came home smelling like rain and coffee, and the hint of perfume she didn't wear for me anymore. She kissed my forehead and said the reading had gone long, students asking good questions. She couldn't say no. The next morning I called Liam. "Lunch?" I said. "Always," he said. "Where?" "The diner on Route 9, I said, "where the booths are too sticky for anyone to pretend." He arrived with sunglasses and a grin and a shirt that said, "Citywide Run," in a font that tried too hard. "How's the Kitchen King?" he asked, settling in. "Don't," I said. He blinked and then tilted his head. "Okay," he said carefully. "Don't what?" "Don't pretend you don't know what I know." He sat back. "Ah," he said. He stirred his water with the straw like it needed reminder how to be a liquid. "Ethan." "I followed Naomi," I said. "I saw you together." He nodded as if I had told him the weather. "I'm sorry," he said, and he sounded almost like it. "We didn't set out to—" "Spare me the cartography," I said. "You set out and you arrived." He spread his hands, empty palms, like he was confessing to a harmless magic trick. "She's lonely, man. You know that. You've been buried in cabinets and bids. You talk about hinge tolerances more than you talk about her poems." The insult wasn't in the words. It was in the way he looked at me like a kindly physician, diagnosing a minor flaw in a good man. I felt something metal in my chest. "Listen to me," I said very quietly. "You are my friend. You do not touch my wife. You do not give her alibis. You do not ask her to lie to our daughter with Target bags in the back seat like props. You stop seeing her. If you love her the way you say, you stop. If not for me, for the small girl who will remember how this house felt when the wind changed." He opened his mouth and then closed it. "Does she know you know?" he asked finally. "No," I said. "She will, but not from you." He drummed his fingers and looked out the window at nothing. Okay, he said, each letter a small surrender. Okay. At home, I waited until June was at choir and the house had that hollow hour sound. I set Naomi's mug on the table where we signed checks and birthday cards. She came in from the yard, cheeks flushed. She'd been cutting lavender. The kitchen smelled like Provence and a lie. What's this? She asked, seeing the mug, hearing the way I breathed. I know about you and Liam, I said. She did not look shocked. That surprised me more than the affair. She closed her eyes, opened them, and sat. How long? I asked, already learning I didn't want the answer. Months, she whispered. A season. Why? I hate that we ask this, even when we can name the weather. Why is the word that begs the river to be lake? Naomi looked at me the way a person searches a room for the thing they have lost and blames the room for its size. He listened, she said. When I talked about the poems, he quoted them back instead of asking me if I'd sent the PDF. He made me feel like I was an event, not a calendar item. And yes, I know how that sounds. Like someone who wanted to be seen, I said, thinking of June at the dishwasher. Naomi's eyes filled. I didn't set out to burn this down. You carried matches, I said, and I was surprised at the softness in my own voice. Grief has a way of sanding down the edges, so you can pick up what you have to pick up. We talked there till the lavender went limp. She confessed in the style of a good poet. Images, not timelines. Office hours that moved to cafes, laughter that moved to hands, hands that moved to what happens when two people decide the border is ornamental. She said she had wanted to stop and then wanted not to, and then wanted both. She said she did not expect to be forgiven. She said she wanted to be. Do you love him? I asked, a question that felt like a floor giving way. I love the person I am in the story he tells, she said. That is not the same thing, and I hate that it took me this to know it. We slept in the same bed, but the room felt thinner. In the morning, we told June. We told her the truth you can tell a child who is almost not a child, that adults make mistakes that hurt, and adults must clean them without asking children to hold the bucket. June went white around the mouth and then red, one of those time-lapse flowers on science shows. She said, I told Dad, with a kind of terrified bravery, as if she thought Naomi would blame her for saving us. Naomi pulled her close and said, thank you, which is a sentence I will be grateful for as long as I have a rib cage. We set terms. Therapy, separately and together. Phones on the counter at 9. No Liam. No errands that were really migrations. Naomi wrote Liam a message that said, I'm choosing my family. He replied with a paragraph that tried to be a poem and failed on purpose. She blocked him. Healing is boring in the way the ocean is boring if you only like fireworks. It is repetition and small repairs and the unglamorous choice not to rehearse damage as an identity. We had setbacks. I opened a drawer and found a receipt from the coffee shop with a date I had not expected, and I went quiet for 2 days. Naomi woke from a dream crying, the kind that leaves you guilty for things you did not do because your heart can't tell sleep from the past. We sat with the counselor and did the painful math of trust. Subtract falsehoods, add neutral days, multiply small kindnesses. When we failed, we started over. Then came the last test, the one that felt like an exam we hadn't studied for. Liam showed up at one of Naomi's readings, public, crowded. He waited till after, flanked her at the signing table and said, talk to me. I was there. I stood behind a column because I wanted to know what she would be when I wasn't an audience. Naomi took his hand off the stack of her books and placed it back on his chest like returning a borrowed thing. No, she said. We wrote a small fire and called it weather. I'm done being smoke. He looked at me over her shoulder, a long, flat look that men give when they think they have been miscast. I met it. There was no victory in it, just the knowledge that he would not live here anymore. We walked home under a sky that couldn't decide between rain and staying merciful. June was on the porch, feet on the railing, a teenager pretending not to keep watch. Naomi squeezed my hand once, like a code, and went inside to burn the last of the lavender. It did not end there, in the cinematic sense, because endings are for stories and we had to live. Some days the house hummed with a comfortable nothing. Some days I stood in the doorway and counted the promises I could keep and the ones I'd broken. Some nights Naomi kissed me with the tentative courage of someone learning a language they used to speak. We made love like new people, slow, honest, grateful, and when the air heated and memory offered its old script, we held each other and chose an ending that did not require pretending we were unburned. When June left for a sleepover, we lit the porch with cheap strings and danced to a playlist she would tease us for. We moved like people who had paid for the song and were going to use all of it. Months later, June asked for the car and the truth in one sentence. "Can I take the Subaru to Ellie's, and are you guys still okay?" And I told her yes to both, with the relief of a man who means it. Naomi framed one of June's photographs for our hallway. The three of us on the beach in winter, horizon like a straightened spine. It isn't a happy picture in the way postcards are happy. It's steadier. We look like people who stayed long enough to choose. Sometimes I still think about errands, about how easy it is to leave a house and how hard it is to come back carrying the thing you found, about laughter heard through glass and a kiss photographed by a stranger's window, about a friend who wasn't and a daughter who told the truth at the cost of being the one who said it first. When I design kitchens, I've started leaving an extra shallow drawer above the trash pullout. Clients think it's a bonus. I don't tell them I call it the honesty drawer. It's a place for the small things that, if left out, invite flies, receipts, notes, the little proofs that we too often stuff into pockets. You open it, you look, you empty it before it smells. I'm not proud of how perfect the metaphor is. I'm only glad I get to build it.